Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining today's session. So what I will start with, I will give you brief information about QNB Group and also about QNB IT department before we proceed with the enterprise architecture topics implemented in QNB. So just for you to better understand from where we are coming and to better understand QNB structure and also key information about QNB. So QNB is established in 1964 as the first Qatari bank. By the way, all information which I will be giving you, you cannot find on the slide. I will just provide you key information. So QNB at the moment have operations in 28 countries, mainly in Europe, Asia, and GCC. So in GCC, we have 12 countries where we have operations. In Africa, we have 7. In Asia, we have 5. And in Europe, we have 4. At the moment, we employ 31,000 employees. We are providing our services in approximately 1,000 branches and approximately 4,200 ATMs. Most of our branches are available in Turkey, 425. Then in Egypt, we have 235 branches. And in Qatar, we have 48 branches. In other countries, we have a smaller amount of the branches. These are the 3 key countries when we talk about branch operations. Now, regarding financials, since we are coming from the banking industry, of course, financials is very important for us. So basically, last year, QNB made profit of $1.1 billion USD. And in the last 5 years, our profit is going approximately 4% up every year. Assets, we have $363 billion. And deposit, we have $255 billion. Our equity is $31.3 billion. Now, in regards to our credit ratings, we have amazing credit rating, I would say, for the banking industry. So we have both Standard and Poor and also Fitch. We have credit rating of A+. We are recognized as the most valuable banking brand in the Middle East and Africa, and our brand is worth $9.4 billion USD. And currently, we are 39th most valuable banking brand in the world. So we are coming from Middle East, and then our biggest competitors and markets that we are available is Middle East and Africa. So in regards to assets, loans, and deposits, we are number 1 bank. When we talk about net profit, we are 5th bank in the region. Our main competitors are FAB, EMBD, SNB, and Al Rajhi Bank. When we talk about the bank, so our key strengths are we have leading domestic presence, so we are number 1 bank in Qatar by far. We have leading regional presence. We have strong operating performance and financial position. Also, we are very well supported by Qatari government. We have, because of our size, we have great exposure to high-value transactions. As I mentioned, we also have a strong credit rating, and we also have experienced management team. So this is all about the bank and about financials, so I will not bother you anymore about these key financial figures. So just in regards to IT department, so as I mentioned, so 31,000 employees. So out of 31,000 employees in the group, we have 1,854 IT staff in the IT departments across the group. And out of this 1,854 staff, around less than 20% of the IT staff is located in Doha. In Doha, we have 600 plus systems that IT is managing day to day for Qatar and also for the most of the banks across the region. And then I want to talk about the 2 assessments and some findings that we had before I hand it over to Jalal, discussion about enterprise architecture. So 2 years ago, we did IT budget assessment. So we basically went through all financials, CapEx and OpEx for Qatar and also for whole group. And we identified that only 2.1% of IT spending is percentage of revenue. And we have also only 3.2 of IT spending as percentage of the operating expenses. What does this mean? This means that basically IT spending is considered as a relatively low if we consider a bank size and the revenue size of the bank. On top of this, when we talk about financials, only 28, or not only, but like 28% of the IT budget is spent on the growth and transform, which are related to kind of projects and implementation of the new systems and features. And 72% of the IT budget is spent for the running the bank. What we have as a feedback from our peers, that in their case, they are spending a bit more on the growth and transform. So basically, what does this mean? This indicates that IT spending structure should be further changed in order to support a planned growth of the bank. Also, what we did is assessment in regards to the enterprise architecture, because enterprise architecture we were shifting last few years, and then we identify several key priorities for QNB in regards to enterprise architectures. First one would be that we wanted to develop a future state architecture for the bank. We wanted that the enterprise architecture enable information strategy as a key pillar to the bank strategy. And also we wanted to that enterprise architecture is guiding solution delivery and operations, which was not the case before that period when we did assessment. And the two gaps that we identified at that point of time was that missing part was facilitation of the innovation in the bank, and also lacking business architecture foundations. I would now handing over this presentation to Jalal to provide you some additional information regarding enterprise architecture.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pople and Peter. So I think I'll just go through the practical implementation of enterprise architecture in QNB and see how we can address those priority use cases mentioned by Pople. So basically, today I'll just touch on the practice that we've done in QNB with like the examples and the deliverables and the scenarios that we implemented. But then the main focus here is about digital governance, which is basically kind of a core sort of a priority for the bank to improve that like the growth and transformation, which was a bit of more concern, as in like the numbers. But before going through the enterprise architecture implementation and details of it, I want to bring a bit of more definition of digital governance here, just to bring everyone in the same page that what is it and what is the main use case that we're targeting. And as for the definition that I just have collected from goodgovernance.org.uk as one of the definition, it's talking about like defining the digital governance as a strategic framework for managing the digital resources. So it's basically a way that we manage the digital resources in a way that they are serving the business purposes or the objectives and goals that we have. And well, I mean, we just try to enable enterprise architecture to try to support digital governance in terms of the like managing the digital resources in different aspects, of like mainly the technology aspects of it, and try to get closer to the business goals and objectives, including the compliance and the other aspects of the organization's goals. All right, so what I do here is just I go through the 3 steps that we took to build up the enterprise architecture. And for each of those, I'll just go through each, like the details of each step one by one. But the point that I'd like to highlight in here is that, as you may notice, the practice itself, like the enterprise architecture, is evolved iteratively. So you would notice that we start very small and build up a very small business value, and then we continue, get back to the foundation and build up the other value. So it was quite kind of iterative in terms of the implementation and development. Okay, by all that said, I'll continue. And at the end of each step, I just try to connect that to the digital governance as the main use case that I'm going to cover in this session. The first step that we're just following to build up the enterprise architecture, like it was normally foundation. So we wanted to build up a base, kind of a stage of the enterprise architecture, and try to build up the enterprise architecture on top of that. And by foundation, I'm talking about the framework that we're using, also a bit of roadmap of the enterprise architecture itself, and the governance side of the enterprise architecture. So we try to build up a foundation in a way that is it's helping us to achieve the goals and the objectives of the practice itself. But well, obviously we start with the framework, and well, I mean, we go with the hybrid framework suggested by Avolution, and we find it out quite practically useful for us. And well, I mean, we continue with like customizing that in a way that is fitting for the users or the scenarios that we're following. But then we try to make the framework a bit abstract to build up sort of development phases, or a bit of more roadmap for implementing the enterprise architecture. So the diagrams that you see are the actual diagrams that we have created to make the roadmap for us. And in there, we try to define 5 levels of maturity for each domain. For example, applications, or like processes, or projects, or innovation. So each domain has come up with like 5 different sort of maturity level. And in there, we decided to start with the application, as you can see in the left side of the screen. Slightly touch on different domains. We build up a very basic portfolio for each as a phase 0, and then we continue with the other phases by enhancing the domain as per the maturity level that we consider. So just highlighting in here that everything that you see in here is come up based on, again, the business priorities. And well, we focus on the applications because those are the main digital assets that we wanted to understand better first. And then after that, we continue with the other side of the the other side of the foundation. I'm talking about the EA processes and also the guidelines and the standards. So for the EA processes, we decided to focus on the processes which are mainly help us to maintain the currency of the baseline and the architecture that we have. And for that, we shorted list the 3 enterprise architecture processes, which are mainly like commissioning or decommissioning an entity. And by entity, I'm talking about any architectural component. Could be an application, could be a server, could be a process, or a capability. We also define a process which is mainly focusing on the changes, which is we call it like post-implementation process, which is triggered when we have a project delivery or a change delivery, like successful delivery in the bank. And well, it could cover like commission or decommission essentially, but we just try to separate those for case of like exceptions or the like covering all the scenarios there. But then there is a point in here that once we design the EA processes, we also continue to attach them to the QNB business processes just to make them effectively operational. Because, well, they are not siloed. They have to be triggered based on the change or business event in the organization. And we try to attach that to the business processes to make them like practically workable. And then we try to build up some guidelines and the standards, which are actually drive us through some sort of high-level lines or standards to build up the solutions. We create a guideline for the cloud modernization, for example, which is mainly help us to understand a very high-level go no go for the cloud modernization. So if we would like to have a cloud solution, that guideline would tell us that this solution is workable to go to cloud or not. Well, we have a bit more detailed analysis and like assessment later on, but this guideline is just bring us in a position that yes, it's good to go for cloud. Let's analyze it in more detail. Similarly, for IT security and integration, we create the guidelines and the standards. But again, in high level, we didn't go through deep level of those things. So for example, for IT security, we just try to cover the concepts like data in transit or data trust sort of security aspects of it, and some sort of general communication like security standards for the communication between the systems. And for integration, for instance, we focus on the loud protocols and also the integration between the layers of the application, which is possible or not possible. Again, concerning the securities and also the integration architecture that we have. And we continue with some basic technology recommendations for the operating systems. For instance, we now know which operating systems are allowed to bring in to the bank and which one are not really kind of the best option for us. And same for the databases and programming languages. And we use these as like a bit of more merged or mapped to the current state. So we didn't want to make something totally detached or not relevant. We try to consider by interacting with the stakeholders, of course, we try to consider the current state and try to build up a bit of more way to go in terms of the standards and the guidelines. So by here, we just try to build up a foundation by choosing the framework, come up with some processes, and also continue with the other side of it, like the guidelines and the standards. And in terms of the digital governance, with the definition that I just tried to highlight there, I think these are basically the alphabet of the digital governance. So if you're going to manage the resources effectively, we need to define a structure for it. We need to know what are those digital resources. Do we consider, for example, processes? Do we consider the applications as a resource, or what are those resources? And then how they are interact with each other. So that would help to come up with a bit of more understanding of the scope of the digital resources as part of the outcome of the digital governance to manage it. And then we continue with build up the baseline. Yeah, we continue with build up the baseline as a step, the second step. And in there, we just go through some basic practices, mainly start with scoping the desired subset of the framework that we would like to consider. And again, since we're going through a bit of more iterative approach, we start very small. And as you can see, at the right side of the screen, this is one of the early application architecture models that we use. And as you may notice, we start with the application architecture to start with and build up the enterprise architecture. And we try to build some of those information around it, like what departments are owning that, or actually paying for it, if you like. Which actors are managing the applications, the suppliers, and also the location, some technology information. So that is a very I would say a small meta model that we start working with practically to build up the enterprise architecture for us. Then we continue with the data side of it. So obviously, we wanted to build up some sort of reliable and central repository for the enterprise architecture by focusing on the applications in the beginning. And as I try to show you in this diagram, Abacus just sitting as a focal point collecting data from different sources. So the strategy here was that we are not making or replicating data which are already exist somewhere. And based on that, we try to integrate with first some existing files and catalogs which are flying through in different divisions and the departments, and try to collect and consolidate those all into the Abacus. We also integrate with the existing CMDB in the QNB so that we have a visibility on the servers and the corresponding applications, or mapping between the servers and the applications. We integrate with one of the most strategic platform in the QNB, which is actually feeding the ideas and innovations, which was one of the, again, highlighted priorities in the bank. We also integrated with technology data sources, and these are some auto-discovery systems which are collecting data from about the technologies, and also about the integration between the systems. That was also a great practice in terms of the understanding how systems in the API level talk to each other. And also we integrate with the existing organization chart. We map it to the Abacus because we would like to understand how the organizations are dealing with the IT overall. So these are some main streams of data that we collect and build up a baseline. One of the points that I want to highlight in here is about the unification. It sounds quite simple and straightforward, but that's one of the most challenging, I would say, practices or issues that we have, because we're dealing with many different data sources, different definitions and different terminologies, but at the same time talking about the same thing. And that was really a big challenge to just try to map these together. So that was one of the I would say challenging practices that we've done. It's still work in progress, but I would say that we try to get a good point by that. And then we continue for the baseline to build up a bit of more information layer on top of the data. So we try to analyze the data. We try to apply the algorithms on the data that we have collected, and make the data even richer. And we also try to do a bit of automation on top. So to give you some ideas about that one, we try to build up some KPIs and scoring for the mainly applications in the repository. For example, risk score is one of those that we just put together the properties and come up with like a bit of understanding about the risk level of each application. Some other things like criticalities and complexity just already there as well. We use the technique of attribution to try to kind of going a bit of more strategic view on the impacts of the application in the other side of the organization. I'll just touch on this attribution later, but that was one of the techniques that we utilized that. And the point here is that when we build up the baseline, we collect the data from different sources. It was not just only the portfolios, it was about the architectures as well, as in like how the things are related to each other. And when you have that architecture in place, you can go through the attribution and build up more kind of transferring some values from a layer to the other layer by the architecture that you have. And it just gives you a nice sort of visibility on the way that the systems are interacting and impacting the other areas of the organization. Definitely, we did automation there for syncing data and collecting data as much as possible. We also try to step further on creating views or in particular diagrams with the existing sources and the algorithms which are available in Abacus to build up the diagrams for us. In terms of the views, we really didn't go through a bit of very complex diagrams, if you like. We just try to stick on simple heat maps, just applying colors on the landscape diagrams and try to convey the message as simple as possible for the stakeholders. We do have some integration diagrams, which are showing how the applications and the systems are interact with each other, but it's a small part of the views that we have. And we also go with the catalogs. We use catalogs for many different purposes and reasons for audits or compliances and those sort of things. But we also use catalogs quite effectively. And well, we use Abacus Enterprise to create a lot of dashboards altogether by putting these items together. And yeah, I mean, that was about the way that we built up the baseline with the small techniques and the steps to build that up. And I would say that this baseline is also the way that we realize the actual environment by defining and creating the data sets and kind of understanding more about the digital components or digital resources that we have. And by adding more data from different sources, we not only kind of enrich the visibility on the digital resources, we add the sort of architecture around that and also analytics around that. So I would say that the baseline would bring even more information, more insight about the digital resources and make them ready to be managed and make them ready to apply some sort of studies and analysis on top. To build up the drive the digital governance that I'll try to discuss them in step 3, which is mainly focusing on the business values and the way that we actually utilize all those foundations and baseline that we built up so far. All right, in terms of the business values, I'll just touch on some deliverables that we try to achieve along the way. And I also discussed about the way that we engage with the stakeholders at the end. But in terms of the deliverables, which is currently one of the major portion of the involvement of us with like enterprise architecture development, the main focus is now deliverables. I'll cover 4 of those, which are mostly related or linked to the digital governance in here, but this is not the all deliverables, I would say. But the main one in here is the portfolio. So application portfolio is one of those that was quite easily achievable. I would say from day one, we could have something like as a portfolio, maybe not 100% completed, but we did have something. But the value of the portfolio is, and I'm talking about application portfolio here, although we have different type of portfolios, like portfolio of the ideas after integrating with the innovation platform, portfolio of the servers, integrating with the CMDB, for instance. So we did build up some like a list of different portfolios, but for the application in particular, we just bring awareness and visibility of the list of applications for the business, as in like a consolidated and integrated sort of list of applications. And we try to add more and more into it day by day. And the value of that was just first provide the awareness and control on top of the list. So we start with, I guess, almost 200, ended up to 600, I guess, number of applications at the moment. But then the other value of that is that it helps us to build up some scenarios on top, like the compliances, the audit, like PCI DSS is one of the key regulations in banks that every bank should follow it. And we just utilize the portfolio to facilitate that work, for instance. And well, I mean, the portfolios are quite kind of simple to achieve in nature, but very effective for us to build up some values around that. But I want to continue with the idea to execution, which is one of the most sort of I would say relevant use case to the speech of Popular as well, and also one of the key use cases that we focus on to make it practically supported by the EA. And this diagram is just give you a bit of a high-level view on what you're talking about and what is the context here. So the lines down in here, like the gray lines, are talking about the stages or steps of the process, moving from ideas to the execution. As you can see, it's quite kind of high level. So in the first layer, we have some ideas collected from different sources. Then we shortlist some of those, and then for those which have been selected, we do the scoping and more business analysis, and then we move them into the project for execution and delivering those into the live or production environment. That's the nature of the job. But then enterprise architecture try to support this process by adding values or helping in different layers. I start from top for the ideas. We come up with like a bit of collecting the data from the existing sources and try to merge that with the other digital resources like the applications and servers and like the integration and all those things, and come up with a bit of more sort of portfolio for the ideas and some properties around that to understand the ideas better and the scope of those a bit better. And then in the second stage, which was mostly like shortlisting the ideas and kind of decision gate that if I need to go with that idea or I need to park it for now, we try to help with the concept of the alignment between the IT and the business with the maps and the tools that we have provided. I'll just touch on those in the next slide a bit more details with a bit more details. But I'll just give you some practical examples that what are the things that we have or EA help with this particular practice. So for instance, like ensuring the digital strategies alignment, that was one of the key I would say helps or supports that we have provided, we as EA. We also ensure the data-driven and business-driven planning for the growth and transformation. So obviously, enterprise architecture that we are running on Abacus is data-driven nature, and that would help to come up with a better or smoother, I would say, visibility on the criteria and the conditions to choose like or select an idea. Also, we help with like governing by business priorities and regulations and capabilities. Once we have the Abacus and put all those things together, and again, I'll touch on that one in the next slide to show you a bit of more practical deliverables in that area. But these are the ways that we potentially could support or provide some sort of support for this layer. Then for the third layer, which is mainly focusing on the solution architecturing, the scoping, and the business analysis, which is a step into a bit of more technical aspects of it. We help with the high-level solution architecture in here. And again, to provide you a bit of more practical examples, I refer to the customer and card data flow compliances, in particular scenarios like PCI DSS. So we help with these type of scenarios. Cybersecurity standards and alignment is another one, that when we are scoping or defining a solution for an approved idea, what are the compliances that we need to consider? What are the security standards that has to be considered? And these are all coming from the portfolios that we build up and the architecture that we build up around. So we have a visibility on the elements. We have a visibility on the impacts on the other areas. We also have a visibility on the integration between those. So that's why we could come up with like a better understanding there. And well, obviously the patterns and the other sort of aspects of that were coming through that I'll discuss in these the next two slides. This one is mostly talking about the alignment maps. So we decided to go with 4 maps to understand the whole context better for these type of scenarios, like making decisions or deciding on the technology transformational involvement. The first one is talking about the map, which is the essence of this map is the organization chart. So we have a 1-layer organization chart, which is the level 0 and the division level. And we map the applications and the ideas to that level. So by this map, we come up with like a bit of understanding that how these applications are supporting different divisions or different part of the organization. And also we understand how divisions are trying or planning to do the modernization because of the idea. So we have a visibility as in like how the systems are work together and all together for a smooth and constant modernization throughout the organization as per or divided by divisions. That is a very effective sort of map that could help to build up visibility as in how the organization is moving in different divisions. The one at the right side is mainly talking about the TRM, the technology reference model. Coming from some good practices out there, we use or utilize some existing good practices out there and try to customize that for QNB. So this map with like 2 layers, I'll just give you an example just for instance of that. So for example, one of the areas or one of the elements in this TRM is about operating systems, which is part of the DevOps and like the ICT assets. And the operating system as a level 0 is break down to the existing OSs like Windows 10, 12, 13, 16. I just give you some names, right? So we have the operating systems, and then down there we have next level, which are the list of the operating systems which are active in the bank. And similarly for the servers, for the databases, for the DevOps, for the integration techniques, for the security solutions. So this TRM would give you a very strategic view from the technology which are already active in the bank. And by mapping the application and servers where it's applicable to those like the technology components, we come up with like a simple but yet effective view in how these technologies are serving the business, how they're actively used, and if we're going to do any sort of changes, or if there is an idea which is relevant, how we can actually manage those things accordingly, or what are the choices that we have, and all those things. The third mapping here, talking about the service catalog, we try to kind of study the buy-in and come up with the service catalog, which is actually quite sort of localized by the definitions and use of the service in the bank, both internal and external, and try to map the applications into the service catalogs as well. And that's also a quite effective map, as in like how the application actually providing services or serving the business at the end of the day, which is also a very insightful sort of map that we could utilize. The fourth map, business capability, it's practically missed at the moment. We don't have it yet. I think we built up level 0 and part of level 1 of it, but I think that's something that we're working out and it's coming through soon. So these are the 4 maps that we have decided to have, and we hopefully finish up all those 4 soon in QNB. The next one is about like in the same time we consider full context view, and as per the definition, I would say the context view is a bit of more high-level blueprint layout, which are segregating like the elements or entities in one domain, and help us to come up with a bit of more control over for the changes. Just give you an example on the application, the top right side. These like diagrams that you see are not the actual diagrams. I just draw a bit of more conceptual view of those to give you some ideas. So for example, for the application, we have like 4 layers, for instance, in here: the channel application, integration layer, core banking, and also B2B, which is a layer to communicate with the external parties. So this is giving me a proper visibility how the application lay out in here, and also how the relationship or connectivity between layers are allowed. And by that said, when we are going to implement a new change or new application, as per the layer that the application or a new application belongs to, the characteristics of the layer, the security constraints and considerations, the integration considerations also would be analyzed, and it's like make the life quite easier when we try to build up a change in the network. So basically, the patterns and the other reusable things are defined in here to support it, which is just come up with like a bit more effective approach to use this context view. Similarly, we have one for the data, which is coming from, I guess, the good practices out there again. I think we inspired that with McKinsey data governance. We define 3 layers of data. So the databases or data entities are sitting in these layers. Either it's a system of engagement or system of insight or analytics, or it's just a system of records which are just stored somewhere in the bank. And again, this is helping us to come up with better visibility in how we behave with the data and how we manage those in different scenarios. For the network, we also define different layers of access points. In here, we define like several patterns, if you like. And for different scenarios, the people accessing the bank, we define different sort of patterns. I think we come up with a list of patterns in there, which are like defining, for instance, if I connect from a local branch to the bank, what would be the layers in here that I need to consider compared to the scenario that I connect from an international branch to the core of the bank in Doha, for instance. So there are different patterns in here that we just listed them, and just try to utilize them whenever we have an expansion. Let's say a new branch is coming through, or we have a new access point or new channel to communicate. We would need to map them to any of those patterns and make the kind of the design quite straightforward. This network is mainly focusing on the infrastructure layer, including security. And then the technology context view, similar to the TRM. I just not spend much time on that, but we practically using the same TRM mapping here, but mainly with the colors and numbers. We come up with like a bit of, again, contextualize the technologies in here for a more strategic sort of decision making done in here. But we stay with these 4, and we think these 4 context view are good enough to go for many use cases that we have. And eventually for the stakeholder engagement, we kind of define a framework in there, as in like for each layer, like foundations, baseline, each step foundation, baseline business values, we try to engage the stakeholders from day one. I just quickly walk through those. For the foundation, we just, as you may notice, we are informing we inform the stakeholders that these are actually the plans, roadmaps, These are the process guidelines. We discuss with them. We consider the current scenarios or the ongoing business and try to build them up in a more practical and effective way. For the baseline development, for the unification, as I mentioned, we had a good engagement with stakeholders. Try to build up a reliable central repository. At the same time, we try to engage them by using the Abacus Enterprise to log in and try to apply the changes as it goes. So sort of collaboration with like maintaining the data is also part of the show. That's not really fully operational. We have a couple of stakeholders engaged, but we already started. For the business values, yeah, I mean, we did have like engagement, different different scenarios and different forms, like providing the awareness, providing visibility on the alignments and compliances, impact analysis and road mapping. These are the scenarios that we engage with the stakeholders to give them some ideas and information there as well. Also, in terms of the helps that we ask from them, obviously we want them to provide the visibility on the needs and concerns they have. We just get support with building baseline from them, as in like data qualities and like missing information and all those things. And also we ask them to join and collaborate on like the enterprise architecture, either as the feedback, using it, collaborating with data population, or any of those. And we also kind of define a small framework for engaging with the governance side of it. So we try to keep in touch with them by feedback loops. Obviously, like the integration, the processes, principles, guidelines, feedbacks from them. And also, we try to have regular review meetings apart from the RV that we have. So that's also another practice that we're doing for the engagement with stakeholders. And just come up with the last slide in here, which is a bit of recap. And because we were focusing on the digital governance in there, I wanted to recap how enterprise architecture at the moment is supporting digital governance at QNB. And I'm just referring to 3 stages, 3 steps that I try to explain there. So at the left side, we clarify the digital resources with the structured and governed approach, like the frameworks and meta models and the architectures help us to kind of clarify the digital resources. And then we come up with like a data enhancement with available sources and algorithms. So we integrate with the different sources for the data enhancement and enrichment. And then obviously we try to visualize those data and make it available for the stakeholders in the like the Abacus Enterprise using diagrams and catalogs. That's also another aspect of that. So mainly focusing on the digital resources availability and visibility. And then we facilitate the ideas to execution for expansion and growth. Obviously, ideas and like the innovation process is a key in here for like transformation, and we try to facilitate that process. We use the alignment map for business technology organization and services as a supportive tool in here. We also use the context diagram to be more strategic for like digital governance view. So kind of provide classified and segregated views for different sources and digital resources when we're dealing with them. And eventually we collaborate with the stakeholders closely and effectively from day one. So that was another sort of support that we think by that we can get into the digital governance down there.